Hey everybody, Kunal here, Bulls on Wall Street. Happy Memorial Day. Looks like we had a good week in the markets, with the market bouncing 1% for the S&P and the Russell and Nasdaq leading the way. It looks like the Bulls have defended the 50-day moving average once again, and we've come right back to the top of the range. And so, as you can see here, right, the last couple months, we've essentially been playing the range and having some sharp drops and some pretty decent sized bounces. And so we're kind of right back into it. By no means, even though the price action was constructive, a lot of the stocks have been beaten down. We're really running. We even did see a rotation out of some of the safety names into the more risky type of growth stocks. It doesn't mean that we're necessarily out of the market. We have seen a lot of distribution and deterioration in breadth over the last couple months. And so, ideally, if you're a bull, we need to see a break of this range, and then it needs to sustain and hold that breakout, right? You're gonna have to build, a higher low and a higher high, and really hold it in. Oftentimes, and it doesn't mean that's gonna happen right now. We have a lot of kind of conflicting data that's coming in, but oftentimes before you see the real flush in a market, you will actually see one last fake out, even a break to new highs before it fails and you roll over. Now, does that mean that's going to happen now? Not at all. Like I said, we're having conflicting things, and we're seeing a lot of different data in terms of the charts. On a shorter term basis last week, we had right multiple opportunities to break down from the range, and we didn't. Right, we ended up making a pop, and so this kind of range pattern that we've been in, right, is starting to make a move to the upside. We couldn't find a sustained downside move, and so that's an important thing. Now we need to really make sure that we can come out of this range and hold. The good thing that we did see last week is that the Russell and the Nasdaq were leading the way. One of the things that we always talk about, right, is when you see the Dow and the S&P kind of really holding up well, and the Nasdaq and Russell are getting killed, that tells you that right people are dumping the riskier assets. And when you want to see really a good strong bull market, a good strong market, right, we need to see growth and speculation and money flowing into that. To really, really have those kind of big, powerful moves that we all play. Otherwise you're going to be sitting there playing, Kroger's or something like that, IBM, and there's just not as much money or volatility in those for a trade. So we did get a nice bounce into the Russell, into the Nasdaq. Also, see it's coming out of this range here, which is pretty important. We did hold support and we're coming out of range. So that's some of the things that we'll have to watch, right? If the S&P makes the breakout, right, do we get some follow through with the Nasdaq and Russell, right? If you see that breakout on the S&P, but you start to see some rollover in some of the other indices, or they can't follow, that would tell me that hey, there potentially is some risk in us getting a fake breakout. The other thing was the volume last week in the S&P. Was fairly light, and so were the market breadth numbers in terms of how many breakouts we want to see and what's happening underneath the hood. But because we have a shorter week this week, right, with Memorial Day, right, a lot of people were off last week, and so it's hard to read too much into the volume and really what was going on because we didn't necessarily have full participation in the markets. See, like in the S&P 500, really only a handful of stocks were out there making highs, even though the market was bouncing. I think we might have 30 or 35 stocks that were really breaking out the highs, even though the market is. And so that's something to kind of to watch, right? There's a little bit of a divergence there in terms of what we'd want to see. So we'll keep an eye on these levels and, be ready to play them both ways. Now, remember, if you're a short-term trader, right, the risk in the market of a fake breakout or rollover doesn't matter because the minute you see it, you just reverse course, right? If you're a longer term trader or more of a swing trader, then this stuff is very vital because you don't want to be holding a bunch of positions overnight and the market roll over or something along that end. You got to really manage your portfolio risk. But once again, like I said, we're seeing some constructive price action in some of the riskier names and also in the indice here. but we do have some conflicting data, and so that lowers the probability a little bit. And for what we do, all we can really do is measure probability and then measure risk, right? And then we take a stab at it. There's nothing that's ever foolproof. Let's take a look at the watch list. I kind of built a list for longs and shorts just in case, but um, for tomorrow, if you see a stock like Newell, we were playing this a lot, right? This is a 50-cent stock that ran up to $5. It really kind of came crashing down, almost cut in half. If this thing gaps down and really has, a big flush at the open, I'll look at this thing for a potential long and a bounce back. Usually kind of a 3 to 8 pullback is, the norm on this one before, you figure out what's going to happen. Most likely this kind of stock just ends up dying on the vine, but there was a lot of volume. The pullback's been fairly light. We'll see if we can get that kind of washout in the morning. RNI, I've been interested in this stuff for quite some time. See, the one thing about this stock is it's had a couple of these kind of fake pop and fades, and it held up okay here. This is a really key level breakout, on the daily. And so this is a stock that you definitely want to be watching next week. You can see there was a volume pop on this thing. It's going to be in play. Rediff, we took this thing long for a huge rip a couple days ago. Then we shorted this thing at 3 and we covered like at 265, the next day. And then I was gone on Friday, but it looks like we had another run. I think these stocks are going to be in play. They might need a little bit of rest. They definitely might need a little bit of rest, but you can tell this is more of a longer term type of breakout. There was some volume that came in on this thing. And I used to trade this thing all the time in 2010, 2011. I mean, when these things go, they can really go. So I think this one and IGC and some of those other stocks, you can see a lot of Indian stocks really hot. And so it's kind of these dumpy ones are going to get picked up at some point. OPHT, just another stock that's really flagging. It's holding kind of the PR pop it's had, and it's starting to flag out. It might not be ready yet, but this one is something you want to watch over the course of the week. Fuel is a stock that I've been watching for a little bit. If this market kind of rolls over, it's just kind of this really steady kind of grind higher after its earnings dump. This is one of those things, right? It's just kind of relieving some tension. And if you see it kind of break down out of this range, you should see a flush back to its lows, of its, earnings day. Power, same type of thing. After the initial flush, right, we're just kind of slowly but surely rising up, right? So it's more of like a kind of a dead cat bounce. Now, can we get a gap fill here? Sure. But the thing about gap fills is like, when you have like, say you're talking about a gap fill in a market or something, right? You're talking about like a 0.3, 0.5% gap that gets filled, right? This type of gap is not getting filled on this thrust, on this breakout. Most likely, right, it fills up a little bit and then it rolls over. Or this resistance right here, it doesn't work and it cracks your support and you start to flush back down. So, two different kind of plays that can come in there. I wouldn't try to play along and go for a big hit. You might get a dollar pop or something like that, but it can be played both ways. Dang is a stock that I'll be watching in case the market kind of rolls over here. This is just hopefully it kind of bounces towards the 200-day moving average before I look at shorting it. CYTK, this is another one. This $5 mark, I suspect, is going to be pretty important. And so, keep an eye on this one, right? We're trying to base out here and make a run. This is a base breakout type of play. Watch for that rip over 5. DXPE, after really this monster dump, just another stock that's really having some trouble even getting some traction on the bounce. You can see we're just kind of inkling up here. And, I suspect at some point, right, this is another one, like I'll play these if the market rolls over, right? Because these are stocks that had bad earnings and they're having a lot of trouble bouncing and they're doing it even on really light volume, right? So, yeah, if it breaks down over here, we'll take this one for a potential short. Sohu, same type of deal. Right after this big flush, a lot of these kind of beat down stocks, right, they really had very sharp snapbacks. Look at this one, right? You're just talking about a stock that's really popped just a few dollars, and we're kind of holding under this resistance level that's fairly key. So, really anything around this level, we'll watch, right? We've got another kind of bear flag brewing in this one. ICLD, This is a really speculative stock. It's a piece of crap, but you can see we're flagging here right over this 20-day moving average. I suspect Monday or Tuesday we're going to come back in and test this 50-day. It's got some good things brewing about it. Arden, another bear flag, right? The stock got killed on earnings, ran down for 3 days. Now we're just kind of, right, evening things out here, right? It's kind of having like a oversold bounce, but it's having trouble bouncing. This will be another potential rollover candidate. CLB, same type of deal, right? Big flush, bear flag. GMCR, I like this one potentially for a long. I've been watching this one. It's kind of just basing out over here, right? So we got a breakout, a flag. You can see here, we're kind of building a little bit of a spot here that we can use. Right, so we're kind of ping-ponging around. It might need to crest for a few more days, but it's getting there where it's going to get real coiled up and then have that explosive move that it needs. Grub, this is an IPO stock. It's going to be a little bit more tricky to read. You can see here, right after IPO, it's just tap. We're starting to come out of range here. This would be one of those stocks. I'd only pick this up if I saw kind of a sustained breakout in the market, as this is more of a speculative type of name. It's been beaten down. But I think if we do get the breakout in the markets, that a lot of these kind of bottom stocks, they're going to start getting picked up, right? And so this is one where your risk is just really, really low. Junk. And another one, Rax, right? You can tell this 35 level is just really, really huge here. I think this one, potentially, right, could run up to the 37s, if not higher. Take care, Jordan. See you, buddy. And then ARTX, I really like this one. This is a small cap stock. It's got a good look to it, though. Definitely got a good look to it. All right, we got a flag right over that 50-day moving average. This stock has a history of going on some big moves. We just had a really big move. It's digested it. It looks like it's ready for more. So that's it for now, guys. Be prepared, right? In the markets, you got to understand what could happen and what are the probabilities of them. We saw some constructive things last week, but nothing that blew us out of the water that says, hey, this is the end. We need to see sustained breakout with volume, right? Some breadth and some other things that really, really feel good. Otherwise, this could be one of those things that last gasp suck you in before you roll back over and get weak. So that's it for now, guys. Let me know if you need anything, and take care.